Someone in the book said, if you ask Phil Mickelson what time it is, he'll tell you how to build a watch. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Read the Right Thing Book Reviews. I'm Eric. Thanks so much for watching. Today I'm going to be reviewing Phil by Alan Shipnuck. Alan Shipnuck is an American writer who writes about golf. He's the author of 8 books, including Bud, Sweat, and Tease, and also the book The Swinger. He's received 12 first place awards from the Golf Writers Association of America. He also writes for Sports Illustrated and Golf Magazine, and he's frequently a guest on podcasts, and I think he might even have his own podcast. And I've been meaning to review this book for a while now, and now that the news broke last week that the PGA Tour and the Live Golf Tour are going to be merging, I thought now would be a good time to finally do a review. This is the first book of Shipnuck's that I read, and one of the first golf books that I've read. I'll admit, I haven't always been a big golf fan. I didn't start following golf until a few years ago, and lately it seems like the sport is growing rapidly in popularity. My main sports growing up, I mostly followed basketball and a little bit of football. And then in college, I got really big into football. But lately, I wish I would have gotten into tennis and golf a long time ago. Those seem to be the two sports that I gravitate towards the most these days. In golf, there's no referees, there's no blaming a bad call or a missed foul. Basically, you put the ball in the cup and you win or you don't. And same thing with tennis. The ball, you either hit the ball in or you hit the ball out. After reading Phil, I would definitely read another of Shipnuck's books. The book was released, I think, last year, right in the middle of the uproar over Phil joining the Live Golf Tour. The Live Golf Tour is that new golf tour that's backed by Saudi money. Alan Shipnuck has another book coming out all about the Live Tour. I think it comes out in the fall. I'm really looking forward to that one. Everyone seems to be confused exactly what's going on with the merger between the PGA Tour and the Live Tour. I've heard the PGA was running out of money and the lawsuit was draining their funds. And obviously the Saudis, they have no shortage of money, so they were just continuing to fight and poach and sign players from the PGA Tour. And I've listened to a few podcasts, and it's so crazy that some people are saying this is the worst thing to ever happen to golf, while some people are saying, hey, this is the greatest thing to ever happen. So it all kind of depends on who you ask. It's a divisive topic for sure. This book, Phil, the rip-roaring and unauthorized biography of golf's most colorful superstar, is something that you can really sink your teeth into. It's a real easy, enjoyable read. Phil Mickelson is a golf genius. He's smart, charismatic, bold, kind of goofy, and sort of an enigma. He can be kind of closed off and at the same time extremely vocal and voicing his opinion on Twitter. Phil is a private person who loves to talk about himself. Someone in the book said, if you ask Phil Mickelson what time it is, he'll tell you how to build a watch. And a lot of peers, fans, and media, they don't like him. He kind of rubs people the wrong way. They find him kind of grating. Or people absolutely love and adore the guy. With media and fans, I find it so interesting that we want our sports stars to really speak up and be themselves and voice their opinions. But then a lot of people get upset when a sports star doesn't have the same opinion that they do. They want these sports players to speak up, but only if it's something that they agree with. The opening chapter of this book is fantastic. It's a compilation of the best Phil Mickelson stories. It's just a roller coaster ride of the funniest and best stories from all types of people. And I don't know if I've enjoyed anything as much as I enjoyed the first chapter of this book. This book dives into his rivalry with Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson's gambling debts, and also what makes him a genius on the golf course. When you contrast Phil Mickelson with kind of the robotic, non-human type of physical performance that Tiger Woods can have, Phil seems very human. When Woods played robotic and calculated, Mickelson played free and took risks. Tiger Woods would exercise like a Marine. Phil would show up to the parking lot, fast food wrappers spilling out of his car. But Phil's kind of reinvented himself lately. He's lost a bunch of weight, and he took second in the Masters, which was really exciting. I mean, he's getting older, but he still seems to be in the public eye, and it still seems like he can win golf tournaments. I hope he sticks around for a few more years. After watching him play this year and reading this book, I wish I had become a golf and Phil Mickelson fan a long time ago. The stories between Tiger and Phil are a fascinating look of what goes on behind the scenes in golf tournaments. The level of gamesmanship and shit talk was really interesting and hilarious. It's super fascinating to me. You have these two ultra competitive people shit talking about their game and their shoes and their swings. There are stories out there on YouTube, but this book compiles some really interesting stories of both Tiger and Phil attempting to gain an edge on each other. There's stories of Phil walking into the clubhouse and basically taking his pants off and saying like, "Oh, these are really nice pants. I know Tiger wears that Nike stuff that wrinkles, but I need my pants to look nice." Or when Tiger was alone at the end of the range, Phil would walk all the way down at the end and basically just hit shots right next to him. Both of these players have elevated and brought the best out of each other, as two mega sports stars are usually known to do. Sort of like Nadal and Federer in tennis, or Bird and Magic in basketball. Mickelson and Woods is a great rivalry because they're so different but both really good golfers. And it's a great rivalry, even though it's been somewhat lopsided in Tiger's favor. Just the stories of what would go on pre round, during the round, and even post round. They were always trying to gain an edge on each other. Whether it was whose caddy are you using, who went out with which celebrity, whatever they could say that they thought would give them an advantage and get in the other's head, they said it. This book rehashes some of his best play in tournaments, and I'm just glad I can go back and watch those. I used to think he was just this real kind of old, goofy dad type, which he is. He is pretty goofy. But he's also really funny, really insightful, and just a bigger than life sports star. He's also controversial. His career comes with controversy. With the last two books I reviewed, it's been kind of interesting because it's these authors taking a look at these musicians, whiskey makers, or in this case, a golfer. And I wonder if these authors treat their subjects fairly and objectively. With the books Pappyland and Deliver Me From Now, those authors, you could tell that they really liked their subjects. They were friendly and maybe even friends with their subjects. There was essentially a fan of whiskey who wrote a fan about Pappy Van Winkle, and a fan of Bruce Springsteen who wrote about the making of his album Nebraska. I think Shipnuck with this book is the most objective to his subject out of the three. He's clearly fascinated and maybe even sometimes bewildered with Phil Mickelson's actions and decisions. But the author presents both the good and the bad in this book. If you love Phil Mickelson, you'll probably read this and become an even bigger fan, and vice versa if you hate him. But Alan Shipnuck presents the good and the bad and lets the reader decide. Just to give you a taste of what's in store, here's a little bit from the introduction. Just throw the first punch. Phil Mickelson is standing so close to me I can smell his breath. Gamey, perhaps from a dry mouth. We are crowded into a tunnel beneath the 18th hole grandstand at Medina Country Club, outside of Chicago. Moments earlier, he had put the finishing touches on a final round 77 at the 1999 PGA Championship, one more indignity in what would be the first winless season of his PGA Tour career. I watched Mickelson play out the string, waving to the adoring fans as he ambled up the final fairway. There was no indication that only 2 months earlier, his heart had been broken by Payne Stewart on the final green at Pinehurst, or that his nemesis, Tiger Woods, was already tearing up the front nine at Medina, on his way to what Mickelson was serially incapable of doing, winning a major championship. No, with his permagrin and goofy thumbs up, Mickelson appeared utterly carefree, but with him, looks are often deceiving, as I was about to find out. My only dislike with this book is I wish it had been longer. With everything that's happened in the last 2 years, it could have been a lot longer. I think I heard a paperback edition was just released, and it may have had an extra chapter. It's a quick read and the pacing is quick, and when I finished it, I just wish there was more. Give me more Phil stories. Prolong that first chapter into a few more. What's your second best Phil Mickelson story? I would still read that. And it wasn't a dislike for me, but if you're already a golf fan and you follow golf closely, then you might already know a lot of things that this book talks about. But if you're a casual fan or a relatively new fan like me, then you'll probably learn a lot. As far as sports books go, I thought this was one of the most entertaining. And if you like books about sports and golf, then you should definitely check out this book. So was this book the right thing for me? Yes, I would say Phil by Alan Shipnuck was the right thing for me. I've mentioned this before in my channel. I don't love the sports biography or the sports autobiography that seems to only talk about the skill and how good these players are and how hard they worked. We know that. We know LeBron James worked really hard and became a good basketball player. Everything's nuanced though. Give us the good and the bad. And Phil Mickelson's a really good subject for this, and Alan Shipnuck did a great job of presenting the good and the bad. So that was my review of Phil by Alan Shipnuck. Let me know what you thought about this book in the comments. If you found this video helpful, please hit that like button, or you can send this video to someone who might like this book. I would really appreciate it. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and as always, read the right thing.